Welcome to The Nest Show, the podcast that brings you insights into the crypto market, trading and investment experiences, and what we're looking forward to as we navigate the space together. What The Nest Show is. This is a podcast brought to you by the Bird Nest community, an independent crypto and Forex-centered trading community built to sharpen each other in capturing opportunities in the markets while protecting capital along the way. What this is not. Trading advice. We are not financial advisors, and you should not regard any information here or in the Nest Club as financial advice. You should always consult a licensed financial advisor before making any financial decisions.
And I'm so happy, Mark, again, to have you on today's podcast, which is in kind of like a different form, because usually we pre-record it. Usually we just make sure, that whatever I would say, different topics, that we don't want to perhaps have on, on the show, like later to be edited or something, they come and go, right? But in this very case, this is all live. I'm so excited to have you on the live show today. And with you, Mark Moss, guys, I'm not really, I would not believe if you tell me you don't know who Mark is. Mark is one of the biggest influencers in this space. If you go to the YouTuber's account of Mark Moss, right? You're going to have what is it, Mark? Like 160,000 followers, isn't it?
It's been growing fast. Yeah, I was I passed 100,000 subscribers just like 60 days ago, and now I'm up to 160, 165 or something like that.
Whoa.
So it's growing. It took me 19 months to get to 100, and then took me 60 days to get to another 60.
Whoa, that's
parabolic.
That's fucking huge, man. That's huge. So you tell me they pretty much invested all the money that they printed, they invested in your account. It seems to just boost your numbers.
I hope so.
It's been crazy, man. I mean, all that I can tell is how much of a fan I am, of what you are doing in this space, of how amazingly, for the quality and the quantity you are really doing and managing all of your channel. What is it, like 500,000 views I can see for some of the big ones, right?
It's
insane.
Some of the videos have gotten over 500,000 views. I mean, I'm kind of regularly getting over 100,000 views on a video. I've been getting about 1.5 million views a month.
Jesus Christ.
That's a big number.
That's a big number. That's like some small country entirely just, watching you, watching your show.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about imagine if you were like a speaker and you could go to get on a stadium, like a football stadium, right? And that would be like the biggest stage you could ever be on in your life. That's like 40,000 people. Well, I speak to 15 of those every month.
That's amazing. I definitely want to, just be, just looking up one time to be like as big as you are, in this space. That's huge honor to have you again. And to kick it off, Mark, I'm very, just curious about a couple of things, to discuss today. And first of all, I'm really curious to know your thoughts about what's going on, on the markets, on the crypto market, on the legacy markets, especially, with all the, again, coronavirus stuff. Like, how is it looking on your end? How is this, I would say, pandemic, you think, in fact, really, for whether is it a hoax, or is it truly something that is actually, just bothering people at a scale, given that you're here in the media? Besides this, before I definitely let you speak and open this amazing, couple of good discussions on these topics. Finally, I'm definitely going to love to hear from you on what your next plans are, right? So just a full circle. So to start with, again, what are your thoughts about what's going on the markets, legacy crypto? How's it looking, Mark?
For the crypto markets? Well, I think for the crypto markets, I'm extremely bullish. I'm probably more bullish than I've ever been, and I've been involved in this space pretty heavily for about 6 years now. And I would say that I just continue to get more and more bullish. Everything that continues to happen continues to build my faith in what's happening more and more. Just for real quick, for those that don't know, I mean, I'm old now, so I've been doing this a long time, and I started my investing career back in 1995, and when I was 18 years old. By the time 97,
I was 2 fucking years old then, man. That's
Yes,
you
yeah,
tell me more about it.
So, well, the reason why it's relevant is because by the time, so I started around 1995 at 18. By the time I was in my early 20s, it was like 98, 99, 2000. And if anybody's old enough to know what those years mean, that was when the internet first broke out. And so all of a sudden we were trading these crazy things called internet stocks, and people thought we were wackos. And we're like, oh, the internet, the internet, the internet. And we're trading these internet stocks. And my roommate I was already a full-time investor. My roommate quit his job and he's at home. He's a day trader now, and he's day trading internet stocks, and we're trading it. Sound familiar? So, right. And I saw that market go up right in 2000. It crashed, and everyone said, oh, that's ridiculous. That internet was stupid. 2001, I decided I would start an e-commerce business selling stuff online. And and back then there was no Shopify, no Amazon, nothing like that. And I had to spend about $25,000 to have someone custom build me a store. And I went to these brands. I said, hey, I built this website. I want to sell your products on my website. And they literally laughed at me and told me nobody would ever buy anything online. It was the stupidest idea. And I said, well, I think they will. And I bought, I spent all this money. And they said, well, we don't even want our stuff to be sold on the internet. And so I just tell you that story because like I've lived through this before. I've had people laugh in my face and tell me no one would ever buy stuff online. And so as I've gone through this crypto phase, everything that I've seen has just continued to build my faith. And so where are we right now? Back to the original question. I believe that really Bitcoin is the thing that I focus on because it's, obviously the asset that drives the market at this point. And really what I've seen with Bitcoin is it's created awareness. It's like it created this like thirst for like education, and our financial system and the way that we even think about money is so broken, and it's intentionally done that. Back in the early 1900s, Henry Ford, the father of the automobile, said, if the people knew how the banking system worked, there would be a revolution overnight. And so the way the money and the way the banking system works has been intentionally hidden from us. And it's only now with the internet, we have access to information. And now because of Bitcoin, we have this, now there's an alternative. And so people have started to invest in their education. And it's like this great awakening where everybody's interested. And now like the word fiat was never used before. And now everybody knows what fiat currency is. And so it's causing this mass explosion. And of course, then that trickles down into other crypto assets as well. And at the same time as this like renaissance or this explosion is happening, the governments around the world are pushing the use case of it even more. So I just couldn't be more bullish for what's happening. It's exciting.
Yeah, this is very well said. I'm personally so much sharing your views that it just goes beyond my understanding. Like, how on earth, how can we have truly, the same thoughts? Because to me, when somebody asks me, what I think of crypto, I think, literally speaking, that crypto has never been more bullish than it is right now. And no, just small short term, just drop can change that. Truly, because it's more about the fundamental flow. What's more about the fundamental trend that's generated in the past months, especially in the past months, that accelerated so strongly in the past months because of what happened and what the government showed to us back in March of this year, right? With this insane biggest, I would say, how we call that? Like, they were literally doing everything to just stop markets from dumping. And they printed enough money to just buy back entire market. They literally bought back entire market with stocks, corporate bonds. Like, it just goes beyond my understanding. And show it to some people, show it to some, I would say, citizens, like civil people that, print money, right, in their homes, and you would be fucking put in jail, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But all of a sudden, people in the suits in the Congress, they are like in the Congress or the Fed or you name it, in the States. Now they're literally, just going like there's nothing happens, right? They are very proud of it. All the negative rate interest, negative interest rates for the recent announcements. Also, like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, as I said, right, they're literally doing policies that are pushing people into alternative currencies, right? By, like you said, printing trillions of dollars out of thin air. As a matter of fact, in the last 6 months, they've printed more money, well, in the United States anyway, printed more money, created more money than in the first 200 years the country was around. They've done that in a couple months. So it's amazing. But I want to say, obviously I'm super involved in the money, the Fed policy, Bitcoin, et cetera. But also there's another aspect to it, and it's the technology side, which is really, caused this alt boom. And what's interesting about that is when you look back through time, there's all these different cycles. Like we're in a 4-year presidential cycle right now, and there's 20-year cycles, 40-year cycles, there's 90-year technology cycles. But really, what we see is that every 50 years, we've had a technological revolution. So going back to the early 1700s was the Industrial Revolution that got people from, instead of planting with their hands, they had machines. And so that was a giant shift going to the Industrial Revolution. And then 50 years later, we had steam engines and we had steel. 50 years later, we had automobiles. 50 years later, we had telecommunications. 50 years later, we had the microprocessors, 1971. Well, now we're 50 years later, and we're seeing a brand new technological revolution. These aren't new technologies. There's only been 4. Now we're in the 5th technological revolution in like 250 years. So it's a big deal. And I believe that this technological revolution that's happening, not technology, is going to be bigger than most people think. And really, it was brought on by the 1971, which was the microprocessor. And now we've kind of seen that the computers and then the internet has kind of continued. And this is what takes that to the next level. And so obviously the money side is there, the way we create value and transfer value. But then when you add that technological revolution on top of it, I mean, it's just going to be massive, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, again, same thoughts in here. I think we as a civilization, as humankind right now, we are definitely stepping in a very accelerated, type of like a movement for the expansion for our economies, again, for the technology, right? That is currently being boosted, first of all by the internet, and the second of all by the AI, by the artificial intelligence, right? So I'm quite sure you're fully aware of it, that there are some estimations that there's going to be like this technological singularity, right? Given around, I guess, 2040s, 2050s, somewhere around there. That at this level, from the civilizational point of view, the humankind is not going to be able to monitor and predictably just observe, just to do some extrapolations on how, things are going to look in the future. For now, we are still some sort of like a linear growth, I would say, when you compare that, of course, with the past, it's still more exponential, but locally we are in this fraction that is more linear. It just goes in a slightly predictable way, but we are just getting started. We are just slowly getting accelerated, right? With the help of AI boost, with the internet. And about this singularity, again, this is the time that I would say production costs, or just, maintenance costs of having the computers, or pretty much like having the technological, I would say, industry using AI and computers. This is going to become so cheap. The cost of that are going to become so cheap that this is going to go global to an extent that we are not going to be able to know what's coming in future, right? Because if you think about it, the AI, in my opinion, is a huge chance, but also a huge opportunity. I mean, a huge opportunity, but also a huge threat. That's exactly what happened with dynamite and Nobel, right? He created, just a thing, like he invented the dynamite with completely different purpose than what's frequently used nowadays, right? For blowing up, some buildings against other people. So it's crazy. So I'm very quickly curious, to know your thoughts about perhaps, did you ever think, about the singularity effect? Did you ever think about how AI may boost the economies?
Well, when you talk about singularity, are you talking about how like humans and machines kind of become one?
I think both of them, especially with Neuralink of Elon Musk in the past, weeks.
But is that what you're talking about with singularity? I'm not exactly sure what you're meaning about that.
Yeah. So the singularity, per the understanding of, technological, I would say, level, right, of progression of the civilizational, again, expansion. So, but in here for the singularity, let's mainly focus then on how you think, the AI is going to impact the overall, markets, perhaps. It's kind of like a tough question, I guess.
Well, I think so. I mean, obviously, a lot of this is just opinions and speculations, obviously, because none of us know the future, as you've already said, right? Humans can't predict the future because all we can do is predict a better version of what we have. We can't predict new things, right? So we have cars, well, flying cars, right? But it's like, so it's hard for us. But What I would say from my position now, and from what I've read and understand, and what I've heard a bunch of experts talk about, obviously AI is here. It's getting better and better and better. I think it's going to be amazing because it's going to help us do a lot of things that we don't want to do. What we want is we want computers and machines to take all the low value tasks so we can focus on the high value tasks. And so, when I was a kid, and I'm older than you, as we talked about, but we had like this cartoon, The Jetsons, and it was like this future generation, right? A cartoon of these people that lived in the future, and they had robots that would cook and clean for them, and like that seems so amazing. But today, people think that's a threat. Like, why wouldn't I want a robot to cook and clean for me so I don't have to work as much? Isn't that what we want? Everything. And I just had this guest on my show, Jeff Booth. He wrote a book, The Price of Tomorrow, and it's all about technology creating deflation, because technology is invented to help us do more work in less time. That's the whole point. I don't want to work 15 hours a day. I should be able to work 2 hours a day and have the machines do the rest for me. So I don't see it as a threat. I see it as a tool that will help me work less, which is what we all should want. However, I don't really believe that. I don't know if I believe we'll ever get to a point where the machines take over for humans. And that's from what I've read and understand and listened to experts. The part that they can't get is, the human brain is so powerful and we have creativity, and machines don't have that. Like, they can't even figure out a cell inside the brain. The brain is so complex. And so there's definitely machine learning. And so machine learning is obviously learning, and it learns logic, and it can try and it can change different directions and things like that. But that's a lot different that's like linear thinking. It's not creative thinking. And I believe that we were created. I believe that we on Earth were created. And I don't believe that a machine is going to have the creativity that humans have, but we don't know.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you are saying that actually, makes me kind of like confirm that, because I believe, I share the same view that we, as the humankind, were created, like this entire, just world. I mean, it didn't really, appear out of nowhere. I mean, there had to be some, again, speaking of physics, there had to be some energy, just kind of like impact, that was congested enough to, turn into stardust, and then, just, all the supernovas and all. I mean, we're not going to go into too much of these astronautics or the overall astronomy, let's say, in this case. But what I mean in here is, we definitely want to spare more time. We definitely want to have more time, and just as you said, the robots, the technology to give us time and freedom, right? So I definitely understand, just as you're saying, this is inevitable. That's what I mean. This is inevitable. It's happening.
It's not just inevitable. It's what we want, right? Like, it's what we want. And since the beginning of time, I talked about these technological revolutions. Every time a new technology comes out, people are afraid. So when electricity came out, the candle makers were like, "Oh my gosh, what do you need that stupid electricity for? We have candles." And they're afraid the candle makers will go out of business. When cars were invented, the buggy makers, what do we need those cars? They're noisy. They're stinky going up and down the street. We have buggies, right? So technology always threatens a certain set of people. We call that creative destruction. So one thing is created and it destroys the old way. But that's what we should want. What happens is people are afraid to learn new things and reinvent themselves and continue to move. And that's why I think they're afraid of it. But for me, I welcome it. I think it's awesome. It creates more opportunities and a better future for us.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. And, just moving on to the other, I would say, part of today's show, I definitely wanted to quickly touch upon, this entire situation with COVID. Again, you're located in US. By the way, not many people perhaps may know that me and Mark had such a great time, with it was in Vegas, right? It was
in Vegas,
Vegas conference. Yeah. I like whenever I go back,
able to do those things.
Oh no, yeah, 100%, man. By all means, we were, just in the center of Vegas, I guess, on this rooftop, like a spot, and having an amazing like steak, all the good drinks. I mean, it was amazing. But what's most important, I mean, I just like back then, I was not really aware of how big and amazing person Mark was back then, right? Now I am aware of it. That's why he's, here on the show as my huge idol. I mean, as a huge idol of mine. But what I mean is, Mark is also having many different hobbies, and perhaps can you just give it like a tiny, just secret part about your surfing, about your practices?
Yeah, I mean, if we don't want to talk about the markets and money, we can definitely talk about that.
We are going to go back to that in a second.
For me, just real quickly, I learned early on that what doesn't get managed, runs away with you. So if you're not managing your time, you're going to end up wondering what happened to your time. If you're not managing your money, you're going to end up wondering what happened to your money. And so we want to be intentional. So what I'm saying is that early on, I decided what happens with most people is they go get this job, and then they have this job, they work however much time, and then they try to fill their life with whatever time they have left. For me, I wanted to build my life, and then I would put my work around that. And so I've always developed this lifestyle where I can go do things that I love to do. So back to your question. Yeah, I mean, I love to surf. And so I live on the beach here in Southern California. I live like 4 houses off the sand. So I try to surf as much as I can. And we take trips whenever we can. The thing with surfing, it's kind of like investing, because I can't control the waves. A storm has to happen 2,000 miles away. And then I can track that storm, and then I can start to see that it's going to start sending waves, and I can start to get prepared for it. And I know in a couple of weeks this is going to happen. And then I have to go to the places where those waves are going to be, but I can't control that, right? I watch, I observe, and then I react. And it's a lot like investing, because I can't control the markets, but I can observe them and I can react accordingly. I can ride that wave just like as a surfer. So I can't plan things out. So if I see a swell's coming, it's going to be here in a week, I can plan a week or 2 out. And that's about as far out as I make plans, because I'll hop on a plane and go somewhere. And lately, COVID's been lightening up. And so I've been able to hop on some planes and go surfing. I've also been hopping on some planes and going dirt bike riding. I just went 2 weeks ago. So a month ago, I was in Cabo San Lucas in Mexico surfing. And then I went to Colorado on a dirt bike trip for 5 days. And then I flew to mainland Mexico on another surf trip. And then I just got home last night from Idaho, another spot in the United States, on another dirt bike trip. So back and forth on those things, getting a little bit of work done in between.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, I mean, I'm asking about all your hobbies because you've been an inspiration to me. And I know you can be a true inspiration to many other people. Like, you are confirmed to be a huge inspiration to many people. So I definitely wanted to quickly touch upon, just this very tiny, I would say, digression from the main merit, so that people can really, just learn that even people as successful as you are can really spare time, to have such a fucking good hobby like surfing. I mean, it goes beyond my understanding. I'm a big, I got to tell you, I truly envy that part, because what I'm here located in Poland, just in the city, well, the only surfing I can do is my bathroom, right? so that's fucking crazy. So I wish, definitely to go back to California when it all passes. And moving back to the merit, I started with coming from the COVID part, right? How is it looking in your view with the COVID and how it impacts the market still? Does it have an impact still, or is it fully recovered? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah. So obviously the COVID, the pandemic has been, I guess, the driver has been everything in regards to the economy, right? All across the world was basically shut down. Businesses were shut down because of it. I've spent a lot of time studying it. As a matter of fact, for the first couple months, I probably studied it more than anybody I know, because I had to figure out what was happening to try to figure out where the economy was going. What I see, unfortunately, it's not the best scenario. So what I mean by that is, like I said, I've studied a lot. First, I was studying the actual virus, and I was looking at trying to figure out what the virality is and the death rate is, and when we would get to some herd immunity. And so then we could start to project when the economy would start to open back up. The problem is that, in the beginning, all we had were models. We didn't have data. Today, we have massive amounts of data. And the data shows us, don't kill me on this, but the data shows us that this virus is not deadly. The data shows us that this virus is less deadly than many other things that we deal with on a regular basis. And so what that tells me is that the government imposed lockdowns that we have are not related to the death to the virus itself. And so there's something else going on. And the problem with that, as a market analyst trying to forecast this, originally I was thinking, okay, when we get the virus under control, then the economy can get back to normal. The problem that we have today is that the virus is under control, but the governments won't let the economy get back to normal. And so now it's turned into a political thing. And so now looking at, as a market analyst, trying to figure out what's going to happen with the markets next, it's not so much about the virus anymore. Now it's all about politics. And so now we have to start digging into that. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear about politics. The problem is you can't understand money without understanding politics, because the politicians are the ones that control the money. So you have to understand both. I see here Jason saying something about lives in Australia. So in Australia is, and I'm sorry, Jason, living in Australia. My buddy I was with this weekend, he's from Australia. He's from Victoria, the state of Victoria in Australia, and it's a communist country. You can't even, okay, he's in Victoria as well, Jason. I mean, I've seen all over. You can't leave, you can't go 5 kilometers from your house. I read about a lady who was pregnant and the hospital was right next to her, but it was across state lines. She wasn't allowed to cross state lines. She had to go 16 hours to the other side of the state, and she lost her baby because they wouldn't let her cross state lines. I mean, it's a communist state. The data is not there on the US website, on the CDC website. If you go there, there's been about 7 million people infected. There's been 180,000 deaths. You divide the 180,000 by the 7 million people, you come up with a 0.03% fatality rate. That means you have a 99.97% chance of survival. If you look into the data, of course, as analysts, we have to dig into that data. We dig into that data and we go, well, half of those deaths were 80 years and older. And then we dig into that and we go, well, this is the United States, of course, right? In the United States, we dig into that and we go, well, almost all of those deaths of 80 years and older happened in 5 states. Why did they happen in those 5 states? We have 50 states in the US. 5 states, the governors of those states signed executive orders. That's like no vote. That's like a dictator basically signs an executive order to put sick people in nursing homes. And it killed old people, the most vulnerable. So when you look at the data, so if you look at the data in aggregate, everything, it's a 99.97% survival rate. But you take out the 80-year plus, and basically it's not deadly to anybody under 80. My wife had it. I slept in the same bed with her every single night, and I didn't get it. And so anyway, again, understanding the markets, it's really a political thing. So then you have to like, okay, what's really going on behind the scenes? And I know for some people, they're going to think this is kind of going far out there, but it's not. So the world is really ran by a group that meets in Davos every year, right? And the group in Davos are the world leaders. They're the ones that pull the strings. And that's run by the World Economic Forum. So there's World Economic Forum, there's the World Health Organization, there's the World Trade Organization, right? These are the NGOs. This is what controls the world. So the World Economic Forum, and you can go to their website, worldeconomicforum.com/Great Reset. On their website, this is not a conspiracy. They're telling you exactly what's happening. And you can see Al Gore and Klaus, whatever his name is, that run it. They're all over the internet saying we're using this opportunity to reset the entire financial system of the world. And so this is on their website. They want us to live in a world where nobody owns anything. Everything's communal. There's no capitalism anymore. And they said that this coming spring is when this whole Great Reset's going to happen. Again, this is not conspiracy. This is on their website. And so, like I said, now we have to look at like past the virus and now look at what this politics of what these guys are trying to do here. And that leads us down another rabbit hole. What's going to happen with the markets?
That's very true, Mark. And I'll tell you what, I mean, you didn't surprise me to start with, right? You didn't surprise me because I'm also aware of all this shit that's going, all this crap going, behind the scenes. And when you think of it and when you truly realize, the actual, again, as you said, the data, when you go into the data, go into the numbers, which most of the people cannot really can really do. If you think about it, again, the entire scholarship system, I would say the school system, the education system, it kind of like raises, people who to be unaware of some specific data. But in here, I got to tell you on the example of Poland, right? But as you were saying, this is just a global thing. Once in every couple of months, again, there's some closed forum, right? Some people would call that like the Bilderberg Group, for example, right?
Yeah.
They meet, I guess, in Europe. Not sure if they meet also in States, but be it in Davos, be it in Europe, there are some closed meetings, and they're kind of like publicly known. For some reason, people would never still just search any information about it, but it's all there. It's all live, as you said. And if you go to the forum site, that is World Economic Forum /reset or Great Reset, right? Then you are literally going to read about it. I mean, it blows my mind for sure. I think it should blow my mind, blow my mind. If I were any other person, I mean, should blow people's minds, because this is actually happening. And as you're saying, they're literally giving the instructions of what's going to happen. So it's so crazy. And it's just a confirmation that, whatever happens in politics, whatever happens, again, with big money involved, with billions and trillions of dollars, right? With global economies, there's no, I would say, surprise. There is no just something that you want to predict. Everything is scheduled like in advance. Everything is scheduled, beforehand, right?
Yeah.
So past couple of years was mainly like some preparation, for what was coming with the COVID stuff. And if you think about it, what's even more interesting, just noticed the other day this point that past 20 years, I mean, we've had 3 sort of like recessions, right? The dot-com bubble of 2000s, the 2008 real estate bubble. Now we are having like, everything bubble almost, right? But the stocks, let's say. And every single recession has had its own virus. Like 2000, they would have like the SARS or sepsis, nobody would call that, right? 2008 and 9, you would have the bird flu. Now you're having the coronavirus. In 8 years, you're going to have fucking, I don't know, Martian virus, right? Because people go to Mars and so on and so forth. But people tend to have so short-term memory that they would not really even remember that. And I'm just so curious to know, like, on your end, how it's looking regarding, the upcoming U.S. elections, the presidential elections, because that's going to bring the volatility. That's going to bring, a lot of mess and chaos in the market. So I'm so looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So again, back into the politics. The thing is, we'll talk about these things, and we don't have to say, well, who do I want to win? But we can look at it objectively, and we can just go, okay, so we have President Trump, we have the nominee Biden running, and we can just look at their platform. Like, what are they trying to do? So Biden, for example, has put together this whole platform of what he wants to do, including what he wants to do with taxes and what he wants to do with the economic things and stuff like that. And so there's actually been several big think tanks that have come out and done full reviews, and they've done polls and things like this. And so we do know that I think regardless of who wins, we're going to see lots more money printing. Regardless of who wins, we're going to see trillions of dollars coming out of the government. So I think the everything bubble, as you said, I think will continue regardless of who wins. I do think that, Biden is coming out saying that he wants to increase taxes. He wants to increase taxes on income. He also wants to increase taxes on investment income, which is taxed differently. And so that could hurt investors. And they're actually predicting the stock market to drop based off of that. So that's interesting. But then back to like crypto and gold, which I look at, other alternate forms of currency. We see that, Biden has selected AOC and Bernie Sanders to kind of run his policy, and they're pushing what they want to call the Green New Deal. And so the Green New Deal is basically this big push to get rid of all fossil fuels, move all to renewables, which sounds great. Like, let's all save the puppies. I want to save the puppies too. But the reality of it isn't quite so good. And mainly they want to spend between 30 to 90 trillion, 90 to 30 to 90 trillion dollars to do this. And at the same time, they want to shut down all fossil fuels, including getting rid of air travel. Yeah, I said
Cool.
that. Getting rid of air travel because it creates too much carbon. And just in the United States, that's $1.5 trillion of GDP. So if that happens, they're going to print 30 to 90 trillion dollars. Now we only have about 26 trillion dollars of debt now, not only, but how are we going to spend an extra 30 to 90 trillion? And of course, we know the answer to that. It's MMT, creating money, which is why I'm so bullish on gold and I'm so bullish on Bitcoin and alternative assets that we can move our money into.
Yeah, same here, man. Same here. That's what I said. Crypto itself, like Bitcoin, if you look at it back in 2008, it was actually released 2 weeks, I guess, after this, Lehman Brothers bank collapsed, right? It was released right after, and it was actually, very contrary per fundamentals of it, right? Contrary
Right.
to it was an answer to the collapsing inflationary model that, since the dot-com bubble, by printing, unlimited amount of money, again, by boosting the inflation, right? By decreasing the strength of dollar against other currencies, they will literally run to the same collapsing situation to kind of like repeat what happened in 2000s to an extent. But here again, it was more of low interest rates, more of big amount of money printed again to help people with the mortgages and so on. So it was a huge bubble, and it did burst, right, with the Lehman Brothers bank to start with. And Bitcoin was released as an answer, as a very contrary model, to that, as a deflationary asset, right?
Right.
So if you think of fundamentals, I know you're not a big fan of, let's say, guessing prices and so on, but do you have any specific, I would say, thoughts about why you think Bitcoin, would or would not reach new all-time high, let's say?
Well, I do look at prices. I look at them over different time frames. So I believe it's easier to get the big picture right. I don't look at the short time frame. So I know you're in the charts and you're the technical analyst master. So you're looking at kind of short time frames. I'm just looking at long time frames. So I do look at prices. Of course, as an investor, anytime I buy any asset, I have to know what it's going to be worth in the future. So I'm always predicting prices. That being said, back to your question about Bitcoin, I think the way that I look at any of these assets, Bitcoin specifically, is like, imagine if I created this app and it was a ride sharing app, Uber, right? But you never heard of Uber before. And so I went to all these different venture capitalists and said, hey, would you invest in this ride sharing app? And they're like, well, we don't know what's a ride sharing app. How much is it worth? I don't know. Well, what are you trying to do? Well, I want to disrupt the ride share industry. Okay, what's the ride share industry? Taxis, limousines. Okay, well, the taxis industries is this big. And if this could capture 5% of the market, then Uber could be this big, right? So you're always trying to project that. And so I look at it the same way. So Bitcoin, for example, is a store of value, right? It's a way to get money outside the banking system. Well, what other ways are you storing value and getting money outside the banking system? Well, gold, right? So that's $10 trillion in gold. What other ways? Well, offshore banking. Offshore banking is $30 to $40 trillion. Okay. What other ways? Well, people also put money into real estate, stocks, things like that. So maybe there's another 80 to 100 trillion there. So let's just say that gold and Bitcoin have a very close parallel. Also, offshore banking, because offshore banking is trying to get it out of the banking jurisdiction. So just right there, we have about $50 trillion. Just right there. So if Bitcoin could take 10% of that, which why wouldn't it be able to? That's $5 trillion. Just that.
That's huge. That's huge.
That's huge. So that's the way that I look at it. I think that Bitcoin is a better option for offshore banking. We've seen, Switzerland, which was the famous offshore banking place. And we've seen in the last couple of years, like these Russian oligarchs that have $500 million or whatever, $1 billion, and these banks have now been getting it seized. Been bad for them. And so they're starting to look, well, where can if I can't trust an offshore bank, where can I put it? Well, I can put it into Bitcoin. Nobody can seize it. So I just think that we'll easily capture 10% of the gold and offshore banking market. Like I said, that's $5 trillion right there. Of course, people put other money into other things. And then we can chase that same model down into other crypto assets. So we could look at Ethereum, for example. Well, Ethereum is a platform that we're seeing all this other technology built off of, right? NFTs and DeFi and all these things. Well, right now you have, let's say, Facebook, or let's look at Amazon. Amazon's kind of like this platform, right, where everyone's building these short stores and products on top of it, and it's worth, $1 trillion. two, whatever, it's worth $1 trillion. And it's like Ethereum is kind of the same thing. Now, I believe that the crypto space will be bigger than the internet space. So if Amazon's a platform worth $1 trillion, how much could Ethereum, the platform, be worth? It could be worth at least $1 trillion, if not multiple trillion, right? And so right now it's worth whatever. I don't even know what it is today, 100 billion or whatever, right? So I look at all different assets like that. What is the space they're going to disrupt? How big is that? If they could get X amount, what would it be worth? And so anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I think this is very, very simply put on your end, right? There is no really like making things hard. You're just very simple thinking about it, and that is what I think you're very successful in the space for, right? And I'm a big fan of diversifying, so that what I also believe in a very same way, in Bitcoin and in other cryptocurrencies, with Bitcoin, just being, I would say, the symbol, right, for every crypto asset there is. I do also hold gold bars, like gold coins, silver coins, silver bars. I do invest in real estate. I do understand that cryptocurrency itself is actually, again, one of many asset classes, with being at the same time extremely risky if you compare it with other asset classes. With theoretically speaking, with bonds, with cash, assuming there's no inflation, of course, right? that the economies are not really collapsing. But it makes me so bullish, because for now, Bitcoin, if you think about it, is actually in the phase of an actual exam. It's passing its test right now as we speak. It's a very interesting, I would say, phenomenon to watch, because it was created as an answer to economic recessions, to an extent, coming from the overinflated economies. And that's exactly the case right now. And to me, it does seem, we can easily go past, $20,000, because we now are way more mature than we used to be, in the past 3 years. The markets are open. There's more money. Same type of movements are happening, on gold, silver, and Bitcoin, which tells me that the same capital is kind of like, just diversified in these three types of, categories, I would say, right, of assets.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, everybody, as we started out in the beginning, right, everything these governments and central banks are doing are pushing people into alternative assets. It's only going to continue. I think the way I look at it too is like gold has, was money for 5,000 years. Central banks buy and hold gold. And there's no other metal. There's steel, there's aluminum, there's chromoly, there's copper, there's palladium, right? There's all other metals. None of those other metals will ever replace gold for what gold's purpose is, right? No central bank is going to go, let's not hold gold anymore. Let's hold rhodium now. Like that's not going to happen.
Uranium. Gold. Let's go with uranium.
Right. Gold is gold. There's no other metals, but I might buy copper. I might invest in a little bit of copper. It's never going to be gold, but why not make a little bit of money on copper, right? And that's kind of how I look at Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is Bitcoin. There's no other assets that are going to beat Bitcoin, but why not trade a little bit of these other ones to make a little bit of money there, right? I think as long as you kind of understand that and you understand the risks, you understand why you're buying and selling, it makes sense, and you can kind of manage that properly.
Yeah, that's very well said. And before I let you go, Mark, because you've been so generous with your time, with your patience, with despite all of the kind of like difficulties that we may have had, just during this show, we're going to make sure to optimize that before we release it to the public. But with all your generosity, of course, now I definitely want to give a very quick, tiny 2-3 minute space for people to ask some questions, perhaps in the Q&A section. There is a Q&A section, guys. Make sure to go right on top. There is a chat section right on the right to that. There is a Q&A section. So if you have, a few short questions, I truly believe, Mark is such a great guy that he's going to take some questions from you. But until the questions start arriving, I definitely want to emphasize, how much of an inspiration you've been to me, how much of an inspiration you are to so many people. The moment that I met you, in this tower, in this beautiful space, in Vegas, it actually opened my fucking mind back then. I decided, like, after hearing your story back then, I decided that, gosh, this guy knows what's going on. I mean, he knows for fucking real what's going on, and he just makes the use out of his knowledge. And that's what I truly admire you for. that's what I truly, have been a big fan of yours. I mean, I think you're such an amazing guy.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I remember that night we had dinner together, and it was I loved meeting you as well. I loved you were here, and then you were leaving the conference, and you were gonna go do the traveling, and you had all these big plans. You're gonna go swim at the dam or whatever, and then go to California, and so it was really cool, and it's been great to keep up with you. I'd like to we need to hook back up, and I'd love to learn more about what you're doing in the Burb Nest as well, and see if maybe there's some stuff that we can do together in there as well. So we'll have to set up another chat offline whenever we can.
Yeah, by all means, Mark. I mean, again, you got it. You take it for granted. I mean, it's given. We're going to launch some good stuff, right? We'll make sure to discuss it offline, just as you said. And
we got a question. we got a question.
Go ahead.
So when will we reach a new all-time high? I would like to answer the question, will we reach a new all-time high? Will we? Yes, we will. When? So the timing is always the hard part. So understand, and that's why I said that in the beginning, we kind of have different time frames. I believe getting the big picture is easy. The short-term picture is very difficult. So the timing, we know what's going to happen. When is the hard question to answer, right? We know that eventually the government is not going to be able to print any money anymore because it's going to be ineffective anymore. When? I don't know, right? So anyway, when will we get to new all-time high? I would say, most likely the next 12 months. I think that will happen, probably even shorter. I wouldn't even doubt it if it was in the next 6 months, but probably the next 12 months, I would say that would happen. But then there's a couple, things. So for example, it's looking like maybe Q1 or Q2 of next year, we might have a massive recession, and a lot of analysts are calling for an 80% drop in the stock market. If something like that happens, that's going to hurt the price of Bitcoin. It's going to hurt the price of gold. It just does, because those are liquid assets that people can do. So we like to talk in probabilities, I don't predict, I talk in probabilities. And so I think it's very probable that we see a new all-time high within the next 12 months.
Yeah, actually sharing the same views. I'm sort of like kind of like also interested to see how the elections are generally going to impact the markets. But just as you said, I mean, the next months are bullish for Bitcoin, in my opinion as well. And I definitely appreciate all of your time, Mark, today. Again, I keep telling you that because I truly want to let you know that you've been a huge inspiration to me, and you're definitely a huge inspiration to many, many people. And
awesome.
With that in mind, and with that having said, I definitely want to thank you for today's amazing show, for today's podcast. And guys, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Moss, the huge legend, was a guest for today's Nest Show podcast.
I'd like to thank our listeners for joining this episode of The Nest Show. If you've appreciated the depth and breadth of what you've heard with us today, subscribe to our podcast and find our landing page at theburbnest.com. We have a vibrant Discord community which acts as our central hub of operations, and we welcome you to join us at theburbnest.com/Discord. We also offer an extensive free bulletin on emerging crypto market trends, exclusive undervalued gem reports, and in-depth expert technical and fundamental analysis at theburbnest.com/bulletin. We always appreciate engagement from our community, which of course means liking the video and subscribing to our page, where we insist on bringing you the highest quality content available. Also, we're happy to incorporate tips and topics from our listeners and encourage you to email us at thenestshow@theburbnest.com. This podcast is brought to you by The Burb Nest. Thank you, and trade on.